Jesus looked at him and loved him. You know, this loving look of Jesus, in a way, is a synthesis of the entire gospel. That look of love is a personal invitation for us to give up everything and follow him. It reminds me of that scene in the book of Genesis when after creation was made and then God makes human beings, male and female. It says God looked at everything he had made and found it very good. This very first loving look of the Creator is reflected in the loving look of Jesus. And Christ will prove this loving look with his redemptive sacrifice on the cross. So have we, I think a good question to ask is, have I experienced this loving look of Jesus in all its depth and intensity? You and I, we certainly need that loving look. All of us have a deep need to know that we are loved. Loved eternally. Chosen from all eternity. And hopefully we experience this look of love from parents, from grandparents, from maybe a spouse, hopefully our children, hopefully our friends. It's like that look when you see when a grandparent gathers up that grandchild in their arms and looks with the greatest and most tender love upon this little baby. Knowing that we're loved by God makes all things possible for us in many ways. Today, this young man in the gospel comes running up to Jesus, throws himself at his feet. We see this eagerness in him, this spiritually alive question burning in his heart. And what do I need to do to have eternal life? I think that's a question that every human being has. There's this hunger for eternal joy, eternal love, not the passing struggles and difficulties of this life, but we know there's something more. This young man, though, is apparently very rich. He has all the basic necessities of life already taken care of. But beyond that, we see in him this longing for eternal life, for a life of friendship with God. And that desire is something so beautiful that we see in him. And there he goes to the right place, seeking it. He goes to Jesus. There's Jesus, the wisdom of God made flesh, the goodness of God made flesh. We say the Word of God made flesh. God's love incarnate. So he runs to him and kneels before him. So he found the objective source of goodness in Jesus. And so he goes to the right place. So many people, I think, believe that the good comes from being able to make our own choices in the way that we want to. That's what's really good. That I can do what I want, when I want, the way I want it. But our tradition says that there's an objective standard to goodness. That the good is found in Jesus. That he is the good. The wisdom, the Word made flesh. God's love made flesh. And so our tradition says that our with His truth. So when we say someone was a good person, we throw that out pretty easily. Oh yeah, they're a good person. Does that mean that they live their life and struggle each day to unite their life and to surrender their life to Jesus, to God? So in our scriptures, in the Old Testament, the New Testament, our entire spiritual tradition, we're taught that when we conform our lives, our choices to the good, then we are rightly ordered. So this young man, he's got it right. He seeks the good, objectively present there in Jesus Christ. So how does Jesus answer this very spiritually alive question? He says, first, follow the commandments. He said that's the basic thing we must do. Follow the commandments. And interestingly, Jesus cites what we call the second tablet of the Ten Commandments. Those are the ones dealing with our concrete behavior, our concrete actions towards others. He says, yeah, you've got to do that. Follow those basic commandments of how you treat one another. And here's some things you should not do. Things that you have to get rid of in your life. And so if we're going to live in God's will and God's love, there are basic things we have to cut out. Don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't lust, don't defraud each other, don't bear false witness, don't crave others' things. So this young man says, I've done all that. I really try to follow the commandments. But he has a sense that there's something more. It's so interesting. He's following the basic commandments. And he says, there's got to be something more, Jesus. What else do I need to do? And Jesus looks at him with love. He says, are you ready for the marathon? Are you ready to run the distance? To run and keep running, and even when it gets so hard you don't think you can do it anymore? Are you ready for the marathon? He says, well, then I'm calling you to a life of radical love. I'm inviting you into my way of living. Jesus says to him, get rid of everything. Sell it all, get rid of everything, and then come follow me. Because there's one thing you're lacking. You may be a good person in many ways, but you're really attached to all your stuff. You're attached to having it your way. So sell all that stuff, and then follow me. Who knows? This young man may have been called to be one part of that inner circle of Jesus. Amazingly, he goes away sad. That life of radical love is a difficult call to answer. That call to pick up our cross every day and follow Jesus is a tough call to answer. That call to give ourselves completely to God, to surrender everything, to allow Him to be the Lord of our life, is a tough call to answer. What is it that gets in the way of us doing that? What keeps us from doing and surrendering our life completely into God's hands? What is it that we cling to? How do we seal our hearts from that look of perfect love? And receive that, and then share that with every person. The disciples are amazed at what Jesus says, how hard it is for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. It says they were exceedingly astonished. They said, well, then who can be saved? Because in their mentality at the time, wealth was assumed to be a blessing from God and somehow a guarantor of salvation. That somehow wealth made salvation easier. And Jesus says no. He says often our possessions possess us. Our possessions control and manipulate us. See, salvation is a gift from God. The only way we receive it is by surrendering ourselves 100%. Not 95 or even 99. We are only saved when we allow Jesus to be the Lord. The Lord of all we are and all we have. What does the first reading in the Book of Wisdom, from the Book of Wisdom, teach us about this truth? That the wise one prefers God's wisdom and God's way before all riches, power, health, and the esteem of others. Jesus says to us today, all things are possible for God. With human beings, it's not possible. You can't save yourself. No matter how many multiple good things that you may do. Today we come to the Eucharist. The Eucharist is the embodiment of Jesus Christ. The Eucharist is Jesus. Body, blood, soul, and divinity. And in this Eucharist, Jesus looks at us with love. With incomparable affection. Let us receive that look of love. Let us accept and rejoice in that look of love